So we're now ready to create our first displacement view. In the previous movie, we talked about how we needed to start in a 3D view, so it's important that you have a 3D view active and set to the vantage point that you want to work in. So here I'm in a file called displace, and I'm in the 3D view called start, and it just gives me a simple orthographic projection here. And in this movie, we're going to begin to create our first displacement set and learn how to actually displace some elements. So the first thing I want to do is right-click this start view, go to duplicate view, and because we haven't displaced anything yet, it doesn't matter if I choose duplicate or duplicate with detailing. In this case, I'll get the same result. So I'll just choose duplicate. It creates copy of start, and I'm just going to rename that to displacement start instead. And click OK. So that'll be my first view that I'll work in here. The next thing I'm going to do is zoom in a little bit on this wall. And to learn how to use the tool, it's really simple. You just select one or more objects on screen. So I'll just select some of these windows here. I'm using my control key. And I'm going to select all 4 of those windows. And then on the Modify tab, you'll see on the View panel a displacement icon, Displace Elements. You just simply click that button, and you'll get a small little gizmo cursor that will appear in the center of your selection. So all 4 of those windows are part of a displacement set now, and they will all move together. And you can move them very easily using this little XYZ cursor. Now, it uses the standard coloring that most 3D programs use. You have red for the X-axis, green for the Y-axis, and blue for the Z-axis. And all you have to do is highlight one of these controls and drag, and it will begin moving the objects in that direction. So you see I can move an X, Y, or Z very easily by just dragging those arrows. Now, if I kind of orbit the view around, you can see that we've pulled those windows away from the building in both directions, and we've even shifted the height of those windows with respect to their previous location. So in addition to the arrows, you also have these small little right angle shapes here. Those indicate that you'd be moving in 2 axes at once. So this little angle shape here would move in both the Z and the X axis simultaneously, where this one would be the Y and the Z, and this one would be the X and the Y. So if you only want to move in 1 axis, use the arrow. If you want to move in 2 axis, you can use that small little angle cursor. Now, if you want more precision than what you get from using these icons and the gizmo here, you can use the properties palette. So what I'm going to do is come over here to the X displacement, and I want to actually reset my X and Z back to 0. So I'm going to put in 0 for the X, and when I apply that, you'll see that I'm now lined back up with my original position in the X direction. I'll do the same thing for the Z. And you see that I'm lined up now in the Z direction back to the original, but I've left the Y offset. And in fact, I'm going to offset it a little bit further out here because I'm going to offset the wall next, and I want to allow room for it out here in between. Now, rather than do all that by eye, what I'd rather do is take a look at the number here. So I'm about where I want to be, and I look at this number, and it's currently 14.9, and it's negative 14.9. So it's important to pay attention to the positive or the negative. So I want to keep it negative because I want to move it in the same direction that I have on screen. But instead of 14.9, I'll just do negative 15. And when I apply that, it'll move just slightly, but now I've got it a very precise amount. And what that means is when I select the wall next and create the next displacement set by simply clicking the same icon. That gives me the new gizmo for just the wall. Start moving that out. That's going to move the entire wall. And you'll see that I'm moving only in the Y direction. Well, now I could say negative 7.5, and that wall will move halfway between its original position and the position of the windows. And so I could start to say that, here's the original building, then we pull the wall out to here, we pull the windows out to here, and so on. So you can make more than one displacement set by simply being careful about how you select. So you want to make sure that if you want the windows separate from the doors, that you don't select them all together. If I select all of these openings with their parent wall and I displace them at the same time, then they're all part of the same displacement set. So if I don't want that, that's when I have to remember to start off by selecting them in logical groups. Now, if I decide I want to change my mind, there's a reset button right here, which will allow me to put the object back in its original position. It basically removes its displacement altogether and puts it back where it came from. Let's say I had only selected this one window and this one door, and I displaced those. And then I realized that I want to also add this window. Well, in that case, I can do Edit Displacement Set, and that will put me in this edit mode. It'll highlight these two objects that are already part of the set in this orange color, and it gives me this little floating toolbar over here. I've got Add and Remove. If I click Remove, the object that I select will go back to its original position. If I click Add, it will jump out to match the position of the current displacement. So it's very easy to add or remove elements from an existing displacement, and when you're done, you just simply click Finish, and now, of course, these three objects will continue to displace together. So displacement sets just simply control the selection of objects that you want to move together in your displacement views. You can either select them all in the first place or use the edit tools to modify the set after you create it, and then you use the gizmos or the properties palette to adjust where the relative positions of those sets are.